Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this, my third video on the unfortunate death of Willem Kruger. Now, in response to my first two videos, I've been accused of speculating too much. So I've decided to make this video, and it will contain zero speculation. I will present only the facts and logical inferences that can be drawn from those facts. And then you can draw your own conclusions. Now, in the gray boxes, I will present the facts as we know them. And where possible, I will provide details on sources. Please take note of the following definition of what a fact is. A fact is a verifiable and objective statement about reality, accepted as true due to evidence or demonstrated reality. Feelings and personal opinions do not meet this definition. But facts cannot stand on their own. They need to be tied to the case at hand. That the earth is round is a fact, but it has nothing to do with Willem's death. In the same vein, that Janneman Ace's truck had damage is a fact, but there needs to be objective evidence that links it to the case of Willem's death. Eyewitnesses, CCTV footage, forensic data, etc. Then from the facts, I'm going to draw logical inferences. And this is not the same as speculation. Inferences involve drawing conclusions based on facts, while speculation is making guesses or hypotheses without sufficient evidence. Inference relies on fact, while speculation often lacks a solid foundation. Also, in evaluating the facts in order to draw logical and valid inferences, we need to evaluate Willem's actions and decisions from the average person's perspective. What would the average person have done in similar circumstances? Although I will in most part present the facts chronologically, in order to draw inferences from a particular fact, I will have to rely on facts presented before and from facts that will still be presented later in this presentation. So keep that in mind, please. So without further ado, let's get the facts to speak for themselves. Now, it's common fact that Willem attended a stag party with about 50 other men until about 1 a.m. the Sunday morning. We can therefore infer that the consumption of alcohol combined with fatigue due to the late hour would have impacted Willem's ability to perceive and to react to dangerous situations, like it would with any average person. According to CCTV footage and witnesses, Willem bought a bottle of water at about 1 a.m. and soon thereafter he left the bar to go to a chalet to sleep that he was sharing with a friend of his. The only possible route he could have followed to the chalet is shown here in this image. So we can therefore infer that this is the route that Willem would have followed. So here we have a warning issued by the South African Weather Service for Saturday, 12th of November 2022. Warning of a level 6 storm over Gauteng, Limpopo and Mpumalanga. This chart shows that in the Ermelo district, the rainfall peaked between 3 and 6 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon. Now, during this time, it wasn't raining very hard at the resort yet, and according to witnesses, the rainfall only became heavy after midnight. So we can infer that the flow in the river adjacent to the resort would have increased overnight, with water levels rising to ultimately top the banks and flooding parts of the resort. Here are some photos, possibly taken on the Monday and the Tuesday, showing the extent of the flooding at and near the resort. The red marker here shows where the truck was eventually found. As the heavy rain at the resort started at about midnight, Willem left the bar at the time it was raining very hard. We can therefore infer that the heavy rainfall would have reduced visibility and made it difficult to navigate in the dark. Now, Willem's truck was fitted with a car-track GPS device that would have recorded information about his position at different times during the day, as well as when he switched his truck on or off. At 1:08 a.m., the GPS tracker data shows that Willem's truck was switched on while it was located in a parking lot outside the bar. We can infer that it was switched on by Willem himself after he left the party to go to the chalet to sleep. At 1:12 a.m., the GPS tracker data shows that he switched his truck off in the vicinity of this caravan stand on the riverbank. To get to this location, Willem must have missed this sharp turn. And knowing that Willem was heading towards a chalet and that the visibility was poor, we can infer that the diversion towards the river was unintentional. This is the road down from the bar towards the right turn here. Here you can see the caravan stand, and here they found the truck behind this tree. So on Thursday, November the 17th, the resort owner found wheel marks and damage made by a vehicle that drove over the same caravan stand where the GPS placed Willem's truck at 1:12 a.m. According to the owner, the marks and the damage were not there before the flood. The marks showed that somebody unintentionally drove over the paved area, and then the right wheel scraped against this post and pushing this one over completely. The vehicle then got stuck, and spin marks showed that the driver tried to back out, but that she was unsuccessful. An eyewitness saw a white truck that evening spinning wheels in the mud. And the width between these marks are also the same as the width between the wheels of Willem's truck. So given that the marks and damage were not there before Willem left the bar, and given that the GPS data places Willem's truck at this location at 1:12 a.m. after what must have been an unintentional deviation, we can infer that the marks and damage were made by Willem's truck and that he then got stuck. At about the same time as Willem switched off the truck at 1:12 a.m., a friend of his got a phone call from Willem's phone, and again 2 minutes later. The friend did not answer the phone as the phone was in silent mode and he was sleeping. The evidence for these calls is in the call history of the friend's phone. A call that goes unanswered or does not go to voicemail will not show up on an official phone record that the police would obtain from a cell phone service provider. Considering that the calls were made from Willem's phone, and considering that at the time these calls were made, his truck was stuck and stationary on the riverbank, we can infer that he called his friend to come help him, as any average person would do. So between 1:12 and 2:17 a.m., the GPS tracker data shows that Willem's truck remained switched off and stationary in the same location. There is no objective evidence that would show us what Willem did during this hour. There are no indications that he tried to call someone else. There are no indications as to whether he stayed in his truck or whether he got out to go and look for help. And certainly no evidence of any kind that during this hour someone attacked him and killed him. What is clear, however, is whether he tried or not, that during this hour he did not get anyone to help him. The GPS data shows that at 2:17 the truck was switched on again, and that it stayed stationary and then it idled for 1 minute, before it was switched off again at 2:18 a.m. Then a minute later, at 2:19, the GPS tracker malfunctioned because it lost its GPS signal. Now the car track device is not waterproof, and it's considered possible that the malfunction was caused by water. This conclusion must be viewed in light of the fact that the water level was rising and that Willem and his truck were found in the river later, along with other electronic devices that stopped working within an hour after the GPS tracker malfunctioning. Thus, we can infer that by 2:19 a.m. there was already water in the cabin, and that, as any reasonable person would have done, Willem switched on his truck to try and get out again. About 45 minutes after the car track malfunction, the smartwatch stopped working. At 3:17 a.m., the car track device lost power as a result of the battery failing. And then at 3:26 a.m., Willem's cell phone lost its data connection. Now, to the best of my knowledge, there are no reports of external interferences with any of these devices or the battery. The cell phone was found inside Willem's truck after they pulled it out, and a smartwatch was still on his arm when they removed his body from the river. Now that the battery, the car track device, the smartphone and the cell phone were found in the water or malfunctioning within an hour of each other without external interferences, suggests a common cause: immersion in water. Now, according to a rescue worker, as reported by Netwerk 24 on the 3rd of February, when the truck was found, the windscreen was already broken. Now, as the truck was found 65 meters from its last known location, the truck must have floated there. Now, under the circumstances, any reasonable person would have attempted to escape from the truck. Since the door could not be opened, we can therefore infer that Willem broke the window in trying to escape from the sinking truck. On Wednesday, 3 days after the incident, someone found a green flask on the riverbank. The next day, someone found a flip-flop and a tube of lip balm. On the Monday, the day before the truck was found, someone found a toiletry bag. I'm not sure about the toiletry bag, but the other objects were found within 800 meters downstream of where Willem's truck would have entered the water. I'm not aware of any official confirmation that these objects actually belong to Willem. When Willem's body was removed from the truck, at least his right foot was bare. He wasn't wearing anything. So he either took his shoes off after leaving the bar, or he wore flip-flops that got off his feet while he was trying to escape from the sinking truck. So inference-wise, the best I can do is to say that if these objects all originated from the truck, they escaped from the truck through the broken windscreen and were then swept away by the floodwaters. And here we have photos showing the flask, the flip-flop, and the lip balm. On Friday, November 18th, a drone detected an anomaly in the river at a distance of about 65 meters downstream from the last known location of Willem's truck. We can infer that as the location of the anomaly corresponds to the exact location of where the truck was found, that it represents the truck, and as such the police already found the truck the Friday. On Monday, November the 21st, a sonar from a fishing boat detected something at the same location as where the drone detected something and where the truck was found the next day. We can thus infer that the truck was not placed in the river on the Monday evening, as the police allege. On Tuesday, the 22nd of November, rescue workers from Gauteng arrived to search in the same area where the drone and the sonar previously detected something. The owner of the fishing boat came to point out to the rescue workers the location of a shadow he detected by sonar. And then the rescue workers found the truck with Willem's body inside at a distance of about 65 meters downstream from where wheel marks show a vehicle got stuck on the bank. Knowing that the truck can float and that it would take between 30 to 90 seconds for an average vehicle to sink, we can conclude that the truck was found in an area where one would expect a truck to be found that got swept away by fast-flowing floodwaters and then gradually sank as water infiltrated the cabin. Now, when Willem's body was found, it was bloated and it could float in the water. His body also showed signs of maceration, loosening and peeling of the skin. Now, according to Knight's Forensic Pathology, a very well-known reference book in the forensics industry, it says that after some days in warmer water and up to several weeks in cold, the thick keratin of hands and feet become detached and eventually peels off in glove and stocking fashion. We can therefore conclude that maceration in particular is a sign that Willem's body was submerged for several days in water, and not just for a few hours as the SAPS alleges. Now, the autopsy report states the cause of death as possible drowning. A forensic pathologist who attended the autopsy, Dr. Simon from the University of Pretoria, concluded that drowning must be considered the primary cause of death. The autopsy report does not mention that there was water in the lungs. But this is what Knight says about how difficult it can be to confirm if a death was due to drowning or not. The great problem for a pathologist is that even in true drowning, there may be no autopsy signs, especially if any appreciable delay has occurred before recovery or autopsy, or both. Therefore, it may be difficult or impossible for him to say whether a death is a true drowning or one from the non-drowning mechanisms. And then Knight has this to say as to why in some cases there may not be water in the lungs of drowning victims. Sudden entry of cold water into the pharynx and larynx and perhaps nasal passages can produce powerful stimulation of nerve endings in the mucosa. A bolus of water entering the trachea can also cause reflex cardiac arrest before there is time for airway insufficiency to have any effect. As with any reflex cardiac arrest, there will be nothing to find at autopsy. And this, the absence of waterlogging by no means excludes true drowning. The so-called dry lung drowning is not uncommon, in which the lungs appear normal in all respects, presumably because all the aspirated water has been absorbed through the alveolar walls into the plasma. So from all this information we can infer that if there wasn't water in the lungs, it is not sufficient evidence that Willem was already dead before entering the water. And both the state and the private pathologists that worked on the autopsy came to the conclusion of a possible drowning. The autopsy report mentions that there were bruises to the front and the back of Willem's head and bleeding in the left and right of the skull base. There is simply no objective evidence that can shed light on how these injuries came about. No lacerations or bullet wounds were noted. The trauma to the head were not deemed to be the cause of death. When a truck was pulled from the river, the rear wheels did not roll, and they found that the handbrake was pulled up and that the transmission was in park mode. Now that the transmission was in park and the handbrake up was the natural consequence of Willem switching off the truck at 2:18 a.m., just before it entered the water. As any reasonable person, he would have placed the truck in park and pulled the handbrake up at that time. The handle of the driver's door was broken off. Now, pulling on the handle is not the only mechanism that would cause the handle to break off. It could also have broken off by a twisting action caused by a force angled down towards the door. Now, as the truck was found 65 meters from its last known location, the truck must have floated there. Under the circumstances, a reasonable person would have attempted to escape from the truck through the door. Since the door could not be opened, we can therefore infer that the door handle was damaged during this escape attempt. The engine was off when it was immersed in water, as there was no mixing of oil and water in the engine, and the headlights did not burn out. There is nothing suspicious about this, because as mentioned before, at 2:18 a.m., the GPS tracker data shows that the truck was switched off shortly before it entered the water. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. Please continue to draw your own conclusions. Was it an accident or was it murder? Until next time, bye.